A popular WWE superstar has returned to the ring, but first, scrapped plans for Cody Rhodes in AEW have been revealed. In February 2022, news broke that Cody Rhodes had left All Elite Wrestling, the company he played a role in founding, with him later returning to WWE at WrestleMania 38. The key reason for Rhodes' decision appears to stem from his desire to win the WWE Championship, a goal yet to be attained by his illustrious wrestling family, although he has now revealed that he had a very tempting offer to stay All Elite. Speaking with Comic Book this week, Cody would reveal that had he stayed in AEW, he would have ended up facing one of his all-time wrestling idols, and Rhodes would say, "I was going to wrestle Sting. I don't think I've ever shared that with anybody, and nothing was on paper or anything like that, but I can say I got a tremendous offer from AEW creatively, financially, the full package. You won't hear me say anything bad about AEW or Tony Khan or my time there. It was a tremendous offer, but the offer wasn't right for me. What I wanted to get back was the first goal that I ever had, winning the WWE Championship. But yeah, that probably would have been the end game. That's what had been discussed, was to get one match with one of my heroes, Sting." Cody was present when Sting made his AEW debut back in December 2020 at Winter is Coming, with the interaction ending with the icon telling Cody, "See you around, kid," perhaps a hint at what was to come. I did recently add Cody Rhodes' name to a poll on the community page when asking the question of who should be the one to retire Sting, and with Sting's AEW contract set to expire later this year, perhaps one last WrestleMania send-off could be an option against Cody, although a lot of cards would need to fall into place for this to happen. Let's also not forget that Sting is also an inspiration to WWE Chief Content Officer Triple H, so perhaps he could be the one to push to bring Sting back one more time, but that's just me fantasy booking. And just quickly before we continue, be sure to check out my latest video, 10 Facts MJF Doesn't Want You to Know, something I've been working on for many months at this point. In the video we pose the question of who is the real Maxwell Jacob Friedman, and is the persona we see the real him? I guarantee you'll learn a whole bunch of things about the man that claims to be better than you, just don't tell him I told you so. And next up, an absent AEW star isn't likely to return anytime soon. Over recent weeks, we've seen Roderick Strong play a role in the ongoing storyline between Adam Cole and MJF, with his friendship with Cole stemming from their time as part of the Undisputed Era in NXT. One former member of the infamous faction that is signed to All Elite Wrestling is Kyle O'Reilly, who hasn't been seen on All Elite Wrestling television since June 2022, with him undergoing neck fusion surgery in September of that year. Speaking on this week's Fightful Select Q&A podcast, Sean Ross Sapp would give an update on O'Reilly's situation, noting that he won't be seen on screens for a while yet, and he would say, "Same as Big E, it's a broken neck, fixed the broken neck, and a long time before he returns, if ever." The last time we heard from Kyle directly was in January, where he would reveal that he was dealing with a post-surgical issue that he will discuss in the future, with Adam Cole later noting that he is in no rush to return to the ring. And next we have the latest on the status of this absent former AEW champion. Speaking of AEW injuries, former AEW Women's World Champion Jamie Hayter is another talent that hasn't been seen on screens in a while, with her most recently being seen dropping her title to Toni Storm at Double or Nothing. Last week we covered a report from the Wrestling Observer newsletter that revealed Hayter isn't expected back on screens before All in London in her home country of England, something many fans had hoped to see. We now have a follow-up report from Fightful Select that revealed more details on the extent of the injury, revealing that she likely won't wrestle at all in 2023, and the report states, Wrestling Observer today reported that Hayter would not return in time for All In, which Fightful has confirmed, barring a miraculous recovery. There were tentative ideas and hopes that Hayter could make it back and be in a featured role on the event, however, things seem worse with her injury than anticipated. We're told that not only is Hayter missing All In, that her returning this year is unexpected, there's no timetable on a potential return. Whilst we have no time frame, we do know that she is reportedly dealing with multiple injuries, including one to her shoulder. Next up, we have an update on two absent WWE superstars. And to cap off the injury updates for today, we also have word on the potential returns of former WWE champions Kofi Kingston and Big E of the New Day. Kingston was scheduled to compete in the Intercontinental Championship 5-way match on the March 10 episode of SmackDown, this before he was pulled after suffering from an injury the week prior, whilst Big E has been out with a broken neck since March 2022. Going back to the Fightful Select Q&A podcast we referenced earlier, Sean Ross Sapp would also provide news on the status of the New Day members, with them very much on two different sides of the injury spectrum, and Sapp would say, "I was told that Kofi wasn't supposed to be that far off, but that was a week or two ago, I believe. Big E is a who knows if he'll ever be back thing." The return of Kofi looks to be one to look out for in the weeks and months ahead, and as for Big E, we do know that he is back to full working order in day-to-day life, although there appears to be some risks involved in bringing him back to the ring at this early stage. Now let's get to the key stories coming from this past weekend's episode of AEW Collision, where a top star earned a big win. The show would kick off with a ladder match between Buddy Matthews and the House of Black and Andrade Elidolo, with the latter's mask hanging high above the ring. The mask would end up in the possession of the House some weeks ago, something Andrade has fought to get back ever since. In the end, Elidolo would find himself on top of the ladder with Julia Hart, who would end up falling backwards onto Matthews through a table, allowing the Idol to take back his stolen property, leaving the arena mask in hand. With the win, Andrade remains unbeaten on AEW Collision, with him securing 2 wins over Buddy Matthews and 1 DQ win over Brody King throughout his rivalry with the House of Black. We now wait to see if he'll move on to the next storyline or if this one will continue into a bout with old foe Malachi Black. And next, the real AEW World Champion has arrived. Ever since his AEW return on the debut episode of Collision, CM Punk has carried around a red bag with him hinting that it contained the AEW World Championship belt that he was seen holding at the end of All Out in September, this before his hiatus from the company due to various reasons. The speculation was confirmed last night when the Second City Saint appeared in Hartford, Connecticut, bag in hand, before pulling out the original AEW World title belt, declaring himself as the real world's champion. Punk would then take out a spray paint can, marking the belt with an X, not only to symbolize his straight edge lifestyle, but also potentially as a shot at the Elite, who he's had disagreements with in the past, with him covering the E in AEW. Whilst this could of course just be a coincidence due to there being no other way of doing an X without covering it, the alternative is of course just not doing an X to begin with, and I find it hard to believe that Punk didn't know what he was doing going into the angle. This especially when you consider other shots that he's made since he came back, such as removing the AEW logo from the microphone at the start of his return promo, and various other Elite references that have followed, such as the counterfeit box line. In isolation, the X thing is a bit of a stretch, but when you zoom out, things become a little bit clearer, although I guess we'll have to see if these digs lead up to anything somewhere down the line. Remember, all 4 members of the Elite are reportedly expected to stay with AEW despite their expiring contracts, so perhaps something has been worked out storyline-wise as part of those negotiations, at least we can all hope. Either way, Punk is set to put the real World's Championship on the line next week against Ricky Starks, who interrupted the promo, with there also being teasers of a unification match with AEW World Champion MJF at Wembley Stadium, who is yet to address the situation. But do you think the recent digs from CM Punk towards the Elite could lead to an eventual storyline? And do you think the X on the belt really represented straight edge, or perhaps something else, or maybe both? Let me know in the comments down below. Next up, did MJF turn on Adam Cole at AEW Collision? Collision would be main evented by an AEW World Tag Team title match that saw the unlikely team of Adam Cole and MJF take on champions FTR. In the lead up to the show, fans would speculate on if this would be the moment that would see Max turn on Cole, or even vice versa. However, this wouldn't be the case. Despite losing the match after MJF sacrificed himself by pushing Cole aside before getting caught up in a shatter machine and being pinned, the friendship between the two men would continue. Whilst there was a tease of Max striking Adam with the world title belt, he would refrain before the two embraced in a hug to the demand of the crowd. Whilst the story will likely lead to one of the men turning on the other, clearly AEW see the popularity in the act and the value of letting it cook for a little while longer. But do you think MJF will eventually turn on Adam Cole, or do you think it will be the other way round? Let me know in the comments down below. And next up, has a major AEW match result been leaked? On the same night that AEW taped the live edition of Collision, a pre-taped episode of Ring of Honor TV would also be filmed. On the show, current ROH Tag Team Champions Aussie Open would appear, however, they were missing one key part of their act, that being the Ring of Honor belts. The episode is set to air on Thursday, this one night after this week's live episode of Dynamite, a show that will see Mark Davis and Kyle Fletcher defend their tag straps against El Hijo del Vikingo and Commander. The lack of belts at the ROH tapings seem to suggest that the Aussies will no longer be champions by the time the episode airs, meaning we look set for new ROH Tag Team Champions this Wednesday night. And next, has the latest AEW signing been confirmed? For our final story coming from Saturday's Collision, we now have news on a top free agent that was spotted backstage at the show. According to a report from Fightful Select, former Major League Wrestling World Tag Team Champion Richard Holliday, a title he held alongside MJF, was seen backstage at the show, sparking rumors that he could be the next name to become All Elite. Whilst there is no confirmation on a deal between the two parties, Fightful would note, Fightful Select has confirmed that Richard Holliday is backstage at today's AEW tapings. Several talent confirmed that they've seen him around at the show. We have no confirmation as to whether or not he's appearing on the show or has met to discuss a potential deal. Holliday is formerly a member of the MLW roster, this before he became a free agent in April 2023 when his contract came to an end. In September 2022, he was diagnosed with stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma, something he has now since recovered from, with his next step in wrestling potentially now confirmed. Fightful would add that Richard does live close to Hartford, which could explain the visit, although we'll see if it leads to anything long-term in the weeks ahead. But what do you make of AEW's latest potential signing? Let me know in the comments down below. Next up, a popular WWE superstar has returned to the ring. Whilst All Elite Wrestling held their tapings for their Saturday Night Collision show, WWE would present a house show in Fort Myers, Florida, an event that would see the return of a former NXT champion. At the show, Johnny Gargano would make his first appearance since the May 15th episode of Raw, with him going one-on-one with Omos in singles action, with him falling onto the losing side of the contest. The appearance brings an end to his more than 2-month hiatus, with there being no word on exactly where he's been in recent times, although it does suggest that his return to television could be imminent. And before you go, make sure you check out 10 facts that MJF doesn't want you to know.